Hello, my name is Paul Stapleton, and today I'd like to talk to you about the 7 words that you should not use in academic writing. And these words fall into several categories. The first category is words that have very narrow meanings. Another category is words that are too informal for academic writing. Another category concerns grammar and collective nouns that sometimes are used as countable nouns. Another category is redundancy. And a final category is hedging. So let's start with words whose meaning is very narrow but is sometimes used incorrectly in academic writing. Now, the first word I often see in academic essays is the word besides. Now, besides seems to have the same meaning as also, moreover, furthermore, in addition, but in fact, besides has a much narrower meaning. So don't use it unless you really know the narrow meaning of the word besides. But I would suggest don't use it at all because it tends to be used in conversation rather than in writing or in formal writing, formal academic writing. Just to let you know, the actual meaning of besides is only used as a final afterthought, some extra idea that you're adding, not as important as the main meanings. Another place that besides is used is before a negative thought. So let's listen to a sentence. I didn't go to the beach yesterday because it's raining. Besides, I had a headache. So the headache is like an afterthought. Anyway, as I said, don't use besides in academic writing because it tends to be conversational. So let's move on to the next word, and that's respectively. Respectively is a word that's often used incorrectly in academic writing. Let me give you an example. Listen to this sentence. The two groups' test scores were 72 and 76 respectively. That is incorrect. Now, let me give you a correct version. The test scores of group A and B were 72 and 76 respectively. That is correct. In other words, when you use the word respectively, you should have two subjects, group A and group B. You cannot say the two groups. Okay, so there's two words, besides and respectively, that you have to be very careful about using. And in the case of besides, just don't use it. Okay, let's go to the next category, and that's formality. And I suppose besides could also be in this category because it's a word that you shouldn't, it's too informal for academic writing. Okay, another word I often see is nowadays. Nowadays is too informal to be used in academic writing. So what should you use? You should use the word presently. Okay, let's move on to our next category, and that is grammar and collective nouns. Now, English is kind of troublesome, isn't it? That we group our nouns into countable and uncountable. And often, sometimes it's hard to tell which nouns are countable and which nouns aren't. Now, when we take a word like rice, we know it's not countable. When we take a word like oranges, we know it's countable. But for some words, such as research, it's uncountable. So it should never have an ES on the end. It should never be used in the plural, okay, as a collective noun. Another word is evidence. Don't put an S on the end of evidence. And I'll give you a bonus word. I know I've said I'm only talking about 7 words, but here's a bonus word, impact. Never put an S on the end of impact. Okay, let's move on to our next category, and that is redundancy. And redundancy is something we really try to avoid when we're writing in English. In other words, don't use too many words to describe something. Let me give you an example. I often see the term survey questionnaire. But of course, a survey and a questionnaire are the same thing. So either say a survey or say a questionnaire, but you don't need to use both words. Now finally, a very important point is hedging. When you're writing up your studies, scientific studies, you should be very conservative. You should be careful not to make such strong statements. And one of the words I often see used is the word prove. You should not use the word prove. The findings prove, the results prove such and such. You shouldn't use the word prove. You should use the word, the findings indicate, or the findings suggest. This is much more conservative, and this is the language that scientists use. Okay, so there's our 7 + 1 words that you should not use in academic English, and I hope you'll come and visit my website at academicproofreadingplus.com. I'm Paul Stapleton. Until next time, see you later.